All right, what an honor. We're going to kick off a panel discussion with a number of distinguished guests from a variety of regions, philosophies. So why don't everyone take, in the interest of time, just 20 seconds to introduce yourselves. Holy, you want to start?
Hello, testing. Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jack. So my name is Lee. Huo. I head the Huobi Capital. So Huobi Capital is the venture arm of Huobi Group. We invest in early stage blockchain related projects, mainly related to token issue. So mainly invest in token projects. So we actually did a review of our portfolio last month. In our portfolio, over 30 to close to 40 projects in our portfolios. Most of them goes to infrastructures and protocol levels. So basically what our goal is through investment, incubations and accelerating, is to build a better ecosystem in the blockchain industry. Thank you.
Hi, Joseph Lubin, background in software engineering and finance. Did work in robotics, machine vision, AI, neural networks, automated music composition. Worked at Goldman Sachs for a little while, ran a hedge fund, built trading systems, then Bitcoin, then Ethereum, then ConsenSys.
Hi, Harrison Hines. Started Token Foundry out of ConsenSys about a year and a half ago. So as discussed a little earlier today, we are an advisory group and a platform helping tokenize the world and helping decentralized networks all the way up to Fortune 50 companies go through the process of tokenizing and creating new decentralized networks or security tokens or asset-backed tokens or non-fungible tokens.
Hello, 大家好，我是陈平，盈信泰资本的创始人。我是2013年就关注到区块链技术，就一直在这方面投资一些项目，希望大家多多关照，也很高兴这个就是我Lubin来到香港。
Hello everyone, I'm邓柯, the chairman from Higgs Block. Higgs Block is a new tech company which is dedicated for the blockchain technology and the solutions, including exchanges, crypto bank, ICO, blockchain solution provider, and also cryptocurrency capital and mining. All these bills we have been involved. And it's glad here to meet with your guys. Thank you.
I'm Jack Liu. I currently lead Circle's Asia operation. Circle is a US conglomerate in the crypto space. Previously, I led OKCoin's growth from 2014 to 2017 as the chief strategy officer there. And so having seen the space on both sides of the Atlantic, I'm going to get right into the latest developments with some of these tokenization processes. With the latest F-coin sort of mimicking Bitcoin's issuance model to some degree, with 51% going through what is called trading as mining, and Zhang Jian very clearly stating that his goal is not just to do that for the exchange, that just happened to be his area of expertise, but launching essentially his ConsenSys or his Binance Labs aimed at making every Web 2.0 model work that way. How much of a threat do you see that, or opportunity even, come into the space, and do you accept that that's the way things are going to go in the future? Joe, you want to start, and then Huoli as well.
Threat?
Just a trend, with your comments.
Well, there are lots of interesting trends in our space. Airdrops are an interesting trend. I think that we are a very immature ecosystem built on immature technologies. We have so much to develop, and I think creative projects, whether they're a whole bunch of closely associated projects or just a single thrust that's exploring some new solution in our space, I think those are necessary. And so, hope to see lots more experiments.
Yeah, so I will agree to what Joe just mentioned. I don't think it's, so I'm not going to comment too much on the exchange side of it, and I don't really think it's more of a threat, but I would see that this is really more of an innovation in this space in terms of the business model. So first of all, it is an ERC20 token, and second of all, it is not a sort of a new form of consensus or new form of decentralized technology. It is more of an innovation in the business model to acquire more customers in that sense, if we just look at it purely from an investment perspective. So I think clearly it is a very smart way to acquire new customers in this market, especially in the bear market. There's no new customers or new capital coming into the market. I think it was clearly a great trial, and then it's proven that it attracts a lot of traffic and eyeballs in this market. But whether or not it's going to be continuously be more successful or becoming more successful, I think we'll see when time goes by. I'll see.
Chen-Ping, as an investor, you alluded to observing some of these trends. What are your thoughts?
我认为这是个很好的模式，刚才我也讲到，它主要是就是让人们去使用它，就能够赚到。如果是去使用它就能够赚到的话，就是未来，就是我讲到的这个，未来就是中心化越来越少了，就是未来这个，靠中心化赚钱的模式就很难了，好，以后就是更多的，只要你要去使用，你就能赚钱。好，这样的话就让普通的人能赚更多的钱，而不是中心化的人能够赚到更多的钱。所以这个模式，我相信以后会颠覆所有的行业。我相信未来会改变这个世界，我觉得是挺好的。
Great. And Harrison, when obviously you're here as part of Token Foundry in Asia, looking to help projects grow their market share here. What do you tell your projects you're advising on how to attack an Asia strategy, and how do you view this climate?
So I would say I'm not an expert in how to attack the Asia market, but part of the reason for us coming out here is to help. But I do think in general for decentralized networks that are global, that it's very important to try to get geographic distribution, so you're not just concentrated to one specific geography, but more so have a wide spread of participants who are all adding value or participating in these networks around the world and spreading the word and trying to increase the activity and applications being built on top of these new open systems.
And Joe, do you want to share sort of your outlook for ConsenSys, what your plans are here in this region? I'm sure everyone in the audience would love to hear.
Sure. So ConsenSys is quite multifaceted. We do product, we do consulting, education, etc. And we are software developers, so we have many different projects that are encouraged to focus on their own best interests. So that's first and foremost, but we also have lots of people that help facilitate communication, coordination, interoperation, and in that sense we're building out the ConsenSys ecosystem, so it's a whole lot of different projects that hopefully will synergize and support each other well. At the same time, we're doing our best to build out the Ethereum ecosystem. So that's a set of technologies, pure Ethereum and a bunch of adjacent projects around the Ethereum ecosystem, and the broader decentralization ecosystem. So when we move into different regions, and we've done that around the world, we often come into a region because we have found work there, or we've been asked to show up for a specific reason. Usually it's a consulting project. And when we do establish a regional office, we look to establish a full stack presence. By that, I mean we do our best to do a bunch of education in the region. We do our best to hire engineers in the region, both for the consulting arm of the company, as well as with a startup focus. So we have a process, ConsenSys Labs, that helps projects form and mature. We have a group of over 50 people in Token Foundry that can help projects launch into token-based networks. And so it really is about going into a region and not trying to extract value, but to try to catalyze activity around these decentralized infrastructures for that particular reason, and essentially develop local talent, entrepreneurial talent, technical talent, and hopefully build a thriving startup ecosystem and do related activities with legacy world enterprises.
Great. Don't want to leave you out. So CoinSuper and BitOn is your wallet business. What inefficiencies or areas do you think the market is not yet addressing that is why you're excited to come into the space in this year? And how are you going to look at competing? Is it more international? Is it competing with the Chinese players? And your thoughts?
Yeah, basically, currently the market data is that compared to the traditional stock market, there are very, very few consumers and customers are already in the cryptocurrency trading market. Very, very few. Meaning that this market will be increasing more and more in the future. There's no doubt. So for us, it's not just for the current customers who have already been on this market, but for the customers who haven't been in this market already yet. But in the future, I believe that more and more people go to this market. So we are seeing this market as a growing market. So we are trying to address the growing part, meaning that more and more people come to the market. They are looking for some look changes which may have some more traditional financial background, and try to make customers more comfortable and safe to trade them cryptocurrency assets. So that's what we are trying to address.
Great. I think we all believe cryptocurrencies are very much a growing market, but it also comes with a lot of volatilities in terms of I'm sure that affects the company build cycle. For a company that's grown to 800 staff, as ConsenSys has impressively done, I think on behalf of the audience, we're curious, how do you manage a company like that? Is there going to be a new book on written about how to manage? How do you do budgeting around token prices that are shifting? And how do you keep up with the space but not expand too fast? Any thoughts that you learned from this, Joe?
Yeah, when we figure all that out, we will definitely write a book on it. So we've been growing fast. All of our product projects want to grow very quickly. The incoming onslaught of interest for consulting and advisory work is pretty extreme. And we need our different support teams, our HR and legal and finance, marketing, et cetera, to all keep pace, and it's difficult. If we were organized as a top-down hierarchical command and control organization, I think it would be more difficult because there's certain rigidity in those sorts of structures, but we're doing our best to take decentralization seriously. We're doing our best to have a quite flat organization, and that causes us to look like essentially a mesh of projects and companies that have spun out of ConsenSys but still retain lots of the DNA of ConsenSys. We retain significant ownership in a bunch of those companies, and so as we want to grow and add new talent, each different project has its own culture, and they have their ability to integrate new talent fairly quickly and enable that talent to get up to speed and to absorb that local culture of the different, we call them spokes, our different product and business teams. It's more of a challenge helping people understand where the company came from and what the overall ethos of the company is, and so we're working on that. Essentially, we are doing our best to move all of our projects towards greater autonomy, or to help projects hopefully wrap themselves in APIs and using a technology called open law, which is blockchain-based legally enforceable agreements to attach service level agreements to APIs, so that in time our marketing department, our legal department, HR, Token Foundry, and many others will publish a set of services so that they we all know what we can expect from them, and service level agreements so that we know how well we can expect in durations and performance. And with these legally enforceable agreements, we hope to be able to send data into those agreements and figure out exactly how much value was created, and maybe base pricing on those things. So the idea here is that we are a company, but we are sort of evolving into a mesh of different projects that can be autonomous, and a project from outside of ConsenSys could come along and make use of different services that are published by these different projects and essentially attach themselves permissionlessly to the ConsenSys mesh. So we have lots of people helping coordinate that, helping us work on emotional intelligence and nonviolent communication techniques, and just figure out how to dynamically grow that decentralized infrastructure. And it will be a very interesting book.
Well, I think we're all looking forward to it. The next questions for Chenping and Harrison, both as incubating projects or as investing in projects. Both from the perspective of what are you looking for in this space, where are the opportunities, whether it's verticals or base layer, and what are your advice for people who might want to invest in projects, or what are some tell sign signals that you've relied on over the years?
刚才我也讲到，就是区块链肯定有95%的项目会死掉，会归零。我认为这个上市公司它有一个严格的这个上市条件，就是你做到一定的标准以后，你才能够去上市。现在 ICO 的话就是没有标准，谁都可以上去。谁都上去就是这里面就会变成有很多人是贪婪的，有些人是骗人的，所以就是要有这个识别这个贪婪的人和骗人的人，就要有火眼金睛。没有火眼金睛，可能就会上当受骗。所以我觉得如果我的这个投资的话，我认为刚才我讲到一个就是技术很强的人组合在一起，再一个还有商业的人比较强的人组合在一起。商业和技术结合在一起，我会比较感兴趣一点。如果纯技术的，我也不一定投；纯这个商业的，我也不一定投。我认为未来大家都说区块链技术没有什么技术，都是copy别人的技术。我相信原来应该是这样的，未来我相信区块链的技术会在原来的基础上有更多的好的技术出现。而我们能够抓到更多好的技术，就有可能成功。所以我现在还是在看比较牛的技术，我更感兴趣。谢谢大家。
So I was thinking about, as an entrepreneur, what to potentially look for. I would say areas where the benefits or value proposition of a blockchain or decentralized system are very strong. So areas where there's maybe a lot of censorship, or areas where data privacy is important, or areas where there is an intermediary in the equation currently that's extracting a lot of value from a system without necessarily adding much value back into the equation. I think those areas are low-hanging fruit. I would say also you should think about actually solving a real problem, or like something that is a 10x improvement over the current version. Not like everything could benefit from being on a decentralized system, but I think at this stage, you know, where it might make sense to move to a blockchain or a decentralized architecture would be where there's a lot of trust involved in that equation, or if you move it to a blockchain or a decentralized system, that version of whatever the current version is would be a much more improved version, not just like maybe a little bit more efficient or a little bit more cost effective. But also I think the most interesting area to look at is now that there's all these new open systems, there's going to be entirely new business models created on top of them. So like when the first person added a digital camera to a phone, everyone thought, okay, like Kodak and digital cameras are in trouble. But no one could have predicted that things like Snapchat would come about, and the way that like people around the world communicated would fundamentally change, and new things like Instagram would be created, all because someone figured out to add a camera to a phone. So I think like we're so early in this space that what those opportunities are like not even thought of yet. So I think it's very interesting to start thinking of, okay, now that you have these new open systems, what is possible? And I think a lot of what's possible, or the very cool things, probably haven't even been thought of. And to just finish that thought, like, if you solve a real problem, it goes back to your question on how do you expand everywhere. If you have a compelling product and a compelling value proposition and you're solving a real problem, I think that, especially given these are really global platforms, that anyone in any part of the world, especially if you design the network properly and design the incentive system properly, like could benefit from these systems, that getting participation in them, you know, you might not even have to go to all these places. The users might come to you, similar to like Bitcoin. It's not like they were out in all these countries trying to get people. They had a compelling value proposition that people liked, and they were solving a real problem, and it just grew organically just based on those factors alone. So I think, yeah, those would be
great. And Holy, I want to know, there are about Huobi Capital, there are, of course, a lot of people talking about blockchain will disrupt VCs, and Huobi Capital sits as a VC within the blockchain space of sorts. I know I certainly am inundated with so many white papers to review. Like, what is this investment process? Knowing that, share some color about how fast deals have to be closed. You know, how do you do diligence so quickly? Do you guys go pursue deals, only invest as a majority investor, or just participant? And how do you differentiate? Just how that operation and the holding period, and just go through that a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a pretty tough question. I only have 1 minute left, but actually, I was thinking about the same questions while you were asking the previous guests. Other than all these innovations, technology, business model, team, team structure, those are all fundamental problems we have to look at, especially at early stage investment. It's similar to angel investment or pre-A round investment. So team is definitely the most important thing. We have a complete team, a balanced team with the right talents coming from the technical side, with the right talent with the right amount of business knowledge. In terms of due diligence, it's really tough in our industry, especially in the crypto industry. When we are doing traditional VCs, we have rounds and rounds of due diligence that can be performed. But now in this crypto industry, you heard about a project, and next day, then the news is, I'm sorry, then all the allocations are gone. So you got to make really, really quick decisions. So for us, it's really a couple of things. And most important is because we have some experience accumulated for the past couple of years. In fact, Huobi as a group, which is our parent company, started back in 2013. Over the past 5 years or so time, we believe we have some experience built, accumulated to understand, have some understanding around how to build a better blockchain system. So with those experience would help us definitely understand the blockchain, the project better. And second is because we actively reach out to source deals, which give us some more advantages when doing due diligence on the projects, because we engage with the team at earlier stage, so it gives us a little bit more time as well. And thirdly, of course, there are some other experience we can borrow from the traditional VC investment. I think, which I taught on the other stage as well. I think when we look back in the traditional model, lots of people are saying that the new forms of ICO investments is disrupting the traditional VC investment. But in fact, what makes more sense is when we look at the traditional VC investment, there are sort of rounds and rounds of investment. Initially with the, let's say there's 500K investment to kick off as an angel stage, and then later on when there's something's been delivered by the team, it's been proven that the business model works, and the market recognized the business model, and then there's another round of investment. There are just different resources can pull into these projects. So I think that would be, so that's something that can borrow. Rather we look at this space, there are projects with a piece of white paper raising millions and millions of dollars. I don't think that's very healthy for the industry, because we see that there was lots of it's been mentioned by other guests as well, 95% of the projects may fail eventually. So I think that's worth sort of more thoughts to be put into this space, and how do we build a better system in terms of investment, because without a healthy investment system, there won't be more successful projects coming out. Yeah.
Great. I think we're completely out of time. So we'll wrap up the panel here. Obviously, Joe, if you'd like to leave a final word, the stage is yours. Something inspirational. Some people are dozing off.
Inspirational. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for your interest.
Do you have any questions to raise out? 大家有没有什么问题想要问一下？
Oh, back there, yes. Please pass her a microphone.
Of the whole platform that will take us to the internet stage of blockchain, that the commercialization, the application will be used as the internet?
Great question.
So it's starting to happen this year. We'll have layer 2 scalability mechanisms in place, so that we'll see games and exchanges and other sorts of applications that have probably thousands of transactions per second capability. We're going to see lots of different protocols that start to interoperate with one another this year. We already have essentially blockchain protocols interacting with decentralized storage protocols. We'll see private permissioned blockchain protocols linking to public permissionless protocols. We already have some of that working. We have Ethereum, the Ethereum network being able to validate transactions from the blockchain ecosystem. So we have basically hundreds or thousands of different projects that are little component pieces, whether they're fungible tokens or non-fungible tokens or atomic swap mechanisms or parameterized insurance products on atomic swap networks or naming systems or governance tools or accounting systems. And all of these are coming together and getting more mature so that someday, a few years from now, we'll feel like the majority of the systems that we use are at least touching blockchain systems.
Yes, we have the other questions here.
So I hear healthy skepticism of ICOs, and I think that that's great. I think that there's one interesting thing is that some projects have raised several $1 million, and then the token that they raised it in appreciated, and now they have $100 million. For the projects that are like excessively funded, if you invested in that project, what would you suggest that project do with that excess funding? Or should that excess funding go towards the development and traction of that particular project?
I think it's a tricky topic. You know, if the project had liquidated all into USD, would this still be, you know, contested topic? If the project really succeeded, where that, like, you know, wasn't so much of an issue and they were using the capital to really help grow the network and the usage on top of the network, maybe it wouldn't be such an issue. In situations where maybe they don't deliver on what was promised or things, could they do something nice and refund some of the value or something? Maybe, but I think it's tricky, and I think people who are purchasing these tokens, not so much looking at it as an investment, but more so moving to a world where you're selling these tokens more to actual users who are participating in these networks, and you're thinking about it more so like they're buying this good to use it. Maybe you stop caring so much about that problem. And I think as we move more to a mature ecosystem where you're selling tokens closer to functionality, closer to usage, if you decide to pay $10 for a token, what the company decides to do with your $10 after you make that purchase maybe isn't so much the purchaser's like business or their concern, but yeah, I could see where you're coming from or where that could cause.
So it wouldn't be that complicated if you marketed your token as an investor token or a security, because if you deem some of your assets to be better utilized in the hands of the owners of the project, then you can dividend out some of that value. It's definitely more complicated if you market a consumer utility token successfully, because you don't want to dividend out value because it simply isn't an appropriate construct, a dividend on a consumer utility token. The tokens are supposed to be used to interact in that ecosystem. There are lots of projects in our space right now that are standing up their platform, building out user interfaces to their technology, and then using some of the value in their ecosystem to incentivize third parties to build on their infrastructure. And so some of these projects are creating funds to incentivize growth of those kinds of ecosystems. So that's one thing to do. Another thing to do is market. We have a project called Virtue Poker. Recently had a successful token launch. Let's assume that the Ether token goes to $10,000 and it has just way too much money. Does it really have too much money? It's in an ecosystem where there are some massive online poker competitors, and it may need to spend hundreds of millions of dollars of marketing in order to compete in that ecosystem. So I would say keep your powder dry, make sure that you're a successful project before you start worrying about the fact that you have too much money.
I just want to add one last point. Part of what we're doing with our platform is adding more payment options into these token sales. So as a purchaser, you could also eventually decide maybe it's not just Ether or a more volatile currency or token. Maybe it's something like DAI that's more stable, or maybe it's actually fiat. So if you opt not to want to take that risk, you could potentially have different options for paying for these things of value in different types of more stable tokens or currencies.